Pirate Software is a very naughty man, I think.
A better you starts today.
Look, you are not going to get any insights into gaming from this channel. I don't really know what gaming is. The only reason that we've ever done gaming in the past is to show how shit I am at it. Because, look, for a long, long time when people were saying WoW, I thought they meant WoW, not World of Warcraft. Didn't even know that. I have no insights into it whatsoever. I can't weigh in to these nerds duking it out on the ethics of stop killing games or... Pirate Software trying to kill like some little indie game or whatever. What I can say about the guy is, let's just assume for a second that all of the drama baiting about him is correct, and that he is. This is the general gist of what I know of him when he's come across. Yeah, tell me if I'm wrong on this, because that's the entire point of this video in a roundabout way, but. Is it safe to assume that essentially Pirate Software is a very smart man? He seems to come across as one. He seems like he's an extremely intelligent guy. He's very didactic in his language. He makes what, from an outside observer, very nuanced, very specific points about gaming software and development and games and that realm. But this really could just be some hillbilly being like, golly. You sure know how to play World of Warcraft, Mr. Pirate. But it seems that the general problem that people have with him at the moment is that he just can't admit when he's wrong. And this is something that I see time and time again in my own field. And I think that this is something that you really need to look out for, especially if you are thinking about becoming a content creator or just as a general summary of who to look out for in life, I think. If someone cannot admit they are wrong, they're crazy. They're an insane person, and it is a bad tell, and you should not get into any business relationships with this person. You shouldn't get into any relationships with this person. If someone cannot admit that they are wrong about objective reality, out. There's several reasons for this. The first one being, and this one I think is the most important, which is that, look, a functioning human being, a successful human being in the long run, and this is something that you need to write down for yourself, right? Success is the grandchild of failure. Success is the grandchild of failure. So what does that mean? It means that you just make a bunch of mistakes in life. The more that you are afforded mistakes, the more that you auto-correct those mistakes, those auto-corrections eventually lead to success. It is the same in anything from software development to software marketing. Every single thing that is game-related or just world-related, it is always going to be a result of that. It is always going to be a result of you being able to recognize mistakes. Being able to recognize mistakes that you are making is, I would argue, the most important thing to just general success in life. Because if you are just blindly going through and making the same mistake over and over and over and over and over and over again, well, you're not going to go anywhere, are you? The general line for learning things, is just like unconscious incompetence, which is I'm doing something wrong and I don't know what it is. And that's where most people stay, Then there's I'm doing something wrong and now I know what it is. That's good. That's the one that feels the worst, but that's where you want to be most of your life. Now, from what I've heard from Mr. Pirate, is that a lot of the time, look, he's a very smart man, and as a result of that, usually, because you are a smart person, a lot of smart people have this problem. It's exactly the same with, say, climate denial. Did you know that smarter people are more likely to not believe in climate change? Not as a general blanket rule, just as if you are highly intelligent, it's either... that you either strongly believe that climate change is happening or strongly believe that it isn't happening. And why is that? It is because you are able to convince yourself using all these different data points to just go down one path, And as a result of that, highly intelligent people find it very difficult to admit that they're wrong. And the reason that they find it very difficult to admit that they're wrong is their ego is, I'm the smartest person. I'm the smartest person in the room. And so admitting that you are wrong when you are an intelligent person feels like the same thing as like, I don't know, say that you're really good at baseball or something and you miss the ball. Like do like a really crap, like, right? Which is always going to happen. The greatest baseball players on earth are going to do your occasional, But that would feel so much worse to somebody whose livelihood depends on it. This is the same as somebody who is very intelligent. Somebody who is very intelligent, especially in their own field. Somebody says, you're just factually wrong about this. They're going to try everything they can to worm away from that. You know what I think my big advantage is in the political realm? That's not my identity. I honestly think that I'm dumb. I think that I'm usually the dumbest person in the room. I mean, it's not true. I'm a genius, obviously. But, that is what I think, generally. When I'm hanging around a bunch of people, and I think that a lot of this also just came from the fact that through my time, I have hung out with politicians, I have hung out with lawyers, I have hung out with people in the public service, and you start to realize, oh, I don't actually know anything. I don't know how any of this world really works. I'm not in it. I'm not all of it at the same time. And the thing is, the public servants don't know anything about the law, and the lawyers don't know anything about the public service, and they certainly don't know how, like, being a politician works and, like, getting all those consensuses. And so eventually at some point you start thinking, like, hang on, who'd have guessed people that devote their lives to these things actually know a hell of a lot more about it than you do, and virtually everybody else is just suffering from Dunning-Krueger effect and sitting there and just being like, these bloody Polish, they don't know shit. There's a lot of that happens, yeah? So, look, I think that has been always my massive advantage in life, which is the sense that if I'm wrong on something, I'm very happy to admit that I'm wrong. It doesn't hurt me at all. What you see endlessly over and over again is a bunch of other political commentators that when they take a swipe at me, they can't do it. They cannot do it. You call them out on something that they factually did that was wrong, and their response video will always either ignore what was said, or they will clip me just saying like the first half of the explanation and then pretend that was all that was said. That's really what happens over and over again with a bunch of those people, is that they either just like deliberately misinterpret what you say, and then you just like, they're just fighting a straw man thing, which is, look, again, not an expert on this, but it seems that that's what he was doing with Stop Killing Games, right? Like that he was just misinterpreting what was being said about Stop Killing Games, and then he's just like, really burrowed in on that and said like, no, fuck you, it's wrong, right? And so this is always the same thing that happens, with my detractors. That is the general pattern of what happens, is like they clip you, and the reason that they are clipping you also in the response video, by the way, is because they cannot admit that they were wrong on the point that you are talking about. So they just block that part out. This is what happens over and over again. You catch them out being factually wrong, and they are not able to admit it. They can't admit it. And this is something that I see, and this is why, through time, I think, I have been able to continually grow. I have been able to have like a consistently loyal audience, because I am not coming to them with this idea of just like, I'm this oracle of knowledge. It's kind of just like, look, this is my interest. I obviously know a hell of a lot more than somebody who doesn't have like their interest in these things. So I can offer like a bunch of unique insights, but I'm a human being. I'm going to get things wrong. And then when I find that, like, okay, for instance, something that's just become like a very abundant over the years is I'm terrible at predicting elections. I'm really, really bad at it. And I think that actually happens a lot of the time when you are in the electoral space. Maybe if you're a pollster or something, it's very different. But usually if you're in the electoral space, you can't help it. Everyone is just in their own bubble, right? And so I just look at it from like, just like, well, according to the data stats and all this kind of stuff. But, elections are more just about like the vibe on the street, because people don't think about like the data point and like what this demographic is moving towards. They don't think like that. They kind of just like, oh, the elections today, it feels like this person's a good choice. And then they do it, yeah? And I'm just not linked to that. So I'm always wrong about that. And so it's just become a meme of the channel. And good. That's a good, healthy thing. It's a good, healthy thing to be pointing out to your audience, yes, I have limitations. Yes, I am a human being. It actually creates more trust. Don't you think that when you think about people in your day-to-day relationship, the people that sit there and are able to say like, yeah, I screwed up on this, do you hate them for it? No. I like seriously respect those people. You know what this whole philosophy started off of? I think that a lot of it is that my ego is sent on the thing that like, I try to tell the truth. This is why I think a bunch of those other political commentators that are always doing it, it's like so triggering to me, because they are deliberately, they don't have that, They have the, I'm a genius, even though they're not, because the thing is, you become a genius by accepting that you're not a genius and that you don't know everything. And as a result of that, people start telling you things and you're able to accept new ideas. But they always just come in with the premise of, I'm a genius. They're not. They're very stupid. It's very easy to poke a bunch of holes in their arguments, and they can't handle it. And so they just keep digging in further. You know, Swollen Pickles is like the prime example that you use every fucking time. That guy is horrendously bad. He's really, really bad. And it's because he cannot admit that he is wrong. He can't do it. He will stretch and go further. And the thing is, you have to keep making more and more absurd, like, distortions of the truth to keep that ego intact, as it just keeps getting more and more destroyed. Because as Benjamin Disraeli once said, at the end of the, the truth can be mocked, it can be derided, but at the end of the day, there it is. Anyway, I think that, like, as a result of that, I think that you build up trust. I think that you get better in whatever you do if you are able to admit fault, if you are able to admit... Look, I'm not even talking about sitting here and saying, oh, you got to apologize and grovel. I think that the apology thing on YouTube is always just done. It's never used in good intention, is it? Ever. No one ever accepts an apology, ever, because it's just a bunch of chronically online psychos that are just looking for an excuse to dig at you. So the apology thing never works. In other words, like, the apology thing is terrible. But I'm just talking, there is a difference between apologizing and being like, oh, I'm so sorry for being wrong, right? And just being like in the real world, I thought this, I learned more information, it's not that. Do you know? Anyway, that's what I'm saying. When you are able to see somebody that is able to do that, I think that that is a very, very good trait, that that person is much more trustworthy. I think that that is a trustworthy trait. It's also just a thing of they are not retreating into a fantasy world of their own design, which is a very damaging, bad thing for reality, isn't it? Because they are just going to try and make reality that, even though it's wrong. This is how, like, a bunch of terrible decisions are made. I mean, you look at the Arrol Sea in the Soviet Union. There was a bunch of scientists at the time saying, this is going to destroy like 5 nations' economies. And because it was the Soviet Union and they just pushed on with it anyway. And it did. I mean, their intentions were noble, but they were profoundly wrong. And there was many points when they started shutting off those rivers that they could have like started pouring it back into the Arrol Sea, but they didn't. And so now you just have these 5 desert places that are just complete ecological disaster zones. And that, again, comes from the fact of just not being able to admit fault. I think it's a really good trait. I think it should be applauded. I don't even think it's like, oh, you said you're sorry. It's not even about you saying you're sorry. It's honestly just a thing of saying to other people, I'm sane. I'm sane. I can, we all have our preconceptions and biases of the world, but I'm not so stuck in them that I can't objectively see that something that I'm pushing up against is a pull door, That, I think, is a really admirable trait in somebody. What I learned from it, I think this was years ago, it was something that I've noticed about Rachel Maddow from MSNBC, right? Now, you might not agree with her political worldview, obviously, and you might, but what you can't say is that she's not thorough in her in her research. She is not a brilliant polemicist. She's such a good polemicist that even Steve Bannon, like the genius behind the Trump campaign, says Rachel Maddow is the best polemicist of our time. And I think that he's right. Like, Rachel Maddow is really, really talented. Her big mantra in life is, when I get something wrong, I admit it to the audience. And you can see the result of that. She is willing to learn. She is willing to improve her craft endlessly. That builds up over time. It gets to the point when she came back for like the first 100 days of Trump's administration, I think MSNBC's ratings went to what, like 2 million, 2.9 million or something at some point? Huge numbers. We're talking numbers that beat Tonight shows. For an MSNBC news show, that shouldn't be happening. And yet it was. And then as soon as she's out, the ratings just plummet again. That comes from a combination of a bunch of things. But one of the main things is, I think, trust. That there is moments where her audience has seen her come out and say, I got this point wrong yesterday. And then she moves on with the rest of her broadcast. Look, the smartest people on earth get things wrong. There is an example of engineers. It was a massive... Because everybody always thinks that there's just been like 3 nuclear meltdowns in human history. Well, yeah, meltdowns, but like nuclear accidents, there's been like 53. It's really scary. And a lot of them are just human negligence. And it's not like they're stupid people. They're nuclear engineers. One time they were looking for a gas leak. I think this was one in Alabama, maybe? They were looking for a gas leak in a... this caused a nuclear fire. Looking for a gas leak along one of the cooling ducts. You know how they were looking for a gas leak? With a candle. They were looking for a gas leak with a candle. Engineers in a nuclear facility. Now, regardless of what you think about nuclear technology, you would assume that engineers would be smart, and they are. But that's the whole thing. Their ego is they're smart, and they're geniuses, and then they do shit like that. You really can't fall into that intelligence trap. Even if you are somebody that has the ego of, I'm intelligent, just know that, I think Socrates put it the best, right? The smartest person in the room is the one that thinks that they know the least. I think that is something that you really need to remember for the rest of your life, is that even if you are intelligent, you should be using your intelligence into trying to navigate out, I got something wrong here. And this is the thing. This is the big cheat code to all of it. This is the one self-help tip that we've got for this entire speech. Make your identity around, make your ego around, I am big enough to say that I'm wrong. You should absolutely do that. That is a very good way of going through life. You will get a hell of a lot further. If your ego isn't, I know everything, your ego is, I'm a big enough man to admit when I'm wrong. Because let's be honest, most people aren't. Most people are way too cowardly to do it. That should be the way that you go through life. You will get better results. You'll get even better results if you sign up to Jordan Shanks for an extra 3 videos a week. Dude, it's a life coaching service. It's sick. Anybody that signs up, you can quit anytime, obviously, because it's goddamn Patreon. But it's like, for the price of a Coke, you get messages. This is obviously just like, draining people in. But a lot of the time, we do just go through the finicky nitty-gritty of self-help to get you motivated so that you actually do the things that you're supposed to do in a day. And that starts adding up over the years. If you are able to do more in a day than the average person does in the direction of your goals, guess what? You actually reach them. The vast majority of people don't. Oh, I'll push it off to next day. Oh, I'm busy today. Nah, if you sign up to Jordan Shanks, you have somebody reminding you endlessly, this is what you need to be doing today. Go do it. That is the most valuable investment that you can possibly make, as well as my seminars. I've got all the links below. Make sure that you come to those. I think I've got one in Melbourne.